What happens when two of television's most beloved figures find themselves in a heated confrontation that nobody saw coming? The lights were bright, the cameras were rolling, and what started as a routine interview on The View quickly spiraled into one of the most explosive moments in daytime television history. Courteney Cox, the actress America has adored for decades, sat across from Savannah Guthrie in what was supposed to be a friendly conversation about her latest project. But within minutes, the atmosphere shifted, tensions flared, and viewers at home witnessed something they never expected to see from the usually composed stars. Before we dive into every shocking detail of what was said, what was implied, and how this entire situation unfolded, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below telling us what you think about celebrity interviews gone wrong. The studio audience settled into their seats, the familiar theme music faded, and Whoopi Goldberg welcomed everyone to another episode of The View. The panel consisted of the regular hosts, but today they had a special guest co-host filling in for one of the absent members. Savannah Guthrie, known for her work on Today, had joined the table, bringing her signature interviewing style to the iconic daytime talk show. The producers thought it would be an interesting dynamic, mixing the formats of two major morning television institutions. Little did anyone know that this particular combination would create television gold, though not in the way anyone had planned. Courteney Cox walked onto the stage to thunderous applause, her smile radiant as always, waving to the audience who clearly adored her. She had been on The View multiple times before, always delivering warm, funny, and engaging interviews. Today was meant to be no different. She was there to promote her new limited series, a dramatic departure from the comedic roles that had defined much of her career. The project was personal to her, something she had not only starred in but also executive produced, pouring her heart and soul into every aspect of the production. As she took her seat, exchanging pleasantries with the hosts, everything seemed perfectly normal. Whoopi opened the interview with her characteristic warmth, asking Courteney about how she had been, how her daughter was doing, and making light conversation that put everyone at ease. The other hosts chimed in with their own questions, and Courteney answered each one with grace and humor. She talked about the challenges of producing while acting, the long hours on set, and how she had pushed herself to explore deeper, more complex emotions in this particular role. The audience was engaged, laughing at her anecdotes, and the energy in the room felt positive and supportive. Then Savannah Guthrie leaned forward, her expression shifting into something more serious, more journalistic. "Courteney, I want to talk about something that's been circulating in the industry," she began, her tone measured but pointed. "There have been some reports, some conversations happening behind the scenes about working conditions on your set, about how certain decisions were made regarding casting and crew. Can you address those concerns?" The question hung in the air like a weight. Courteney's smile faltered for just a moment, a flicker of confusion crossing her face before she composed herself. "I'm sorry, I'm not sure what you're referring to," she said carefully. "We had an incredible team. Everyone was professional and committed to making the best show possible. I'm really proud of what we created together." Savannah pressed on, not letting it go. "But there are people who have spoken out, anonymously of course, saying that the environment was difficult, that there were moments where people felt unheard or undervalued. As a producer, someone in a position of power on that set, don't you think it's important to acknowledge when things might not have been perfect?" The other hosts exchanged glances, clearly not expecting this line of questioning. This wasn't the friendly, supportive interview format that The View typically offered to celebrity guests promoting their projects. This was something else entirely, something more confrontational, more adversarial. Courteney shifted in her seat, her posture becoming more defensive. "Savannah, I think if there were real issues, people would have come forward directly," she responded, her voice remaining calm but with an edge creeping in. "Anonymous complaints are difficult to address because there's no way to verify them or understand the context. I can only speak to my own experience, and I worked incredibly hard to make sure everyone felt valued and heard." Savannah wasn't backing down. "But isn't that part of the problem? That people might not feel comfortable coming forward directly because of power dynamics? You're a major star. You're a producer. You have influence. Don't you think that might make it difficult for someone lower on the hierarchy to voice concerns?" The tension in the room was palpable now. The audience, which had been so warm and welcoming just minutes before, was silent, watching this exchange unfold with a mixture of fascination and discomfort. Courtney's jaw tightened slightly, her hands clasping together in her lap. "I think what you're suggesting is unfair," she said, her voice steady but firm. "You're implying that I created some kind of hostile environment based on what? Rumors? Anonymous sources? I've been in this industry for over 30 years, and I've always conducted myself with professionalism and respect. To sit here and have my character questioned based on unverified claims is really disappointing." Whoopi tried to interject, sensing the conversation was going off the rails. "Maybe we can talk about the actual show?" she suggested diplomatically. "Tell us about your character. What drew you to this story?" But Savannah wasn't ready to move on. "Courtney, I'm not questioning your character. I'm asking you to address legitimate concerns that have been raised. Isn't that what we should be doing? Holding people accountable, even people we admire?" Courtney let out a breath, and for the first time, real frustration showed on her face. "Accountable for what exactly?" she asked, her voice rising slightly. "You haven't given me any specifics. You haven't told me what I'm supposed to have done wrong. You're speaking in vague terms about anonymous complaints and asking me to defend myself against shadows. That's not accountability. That's a witch hunt." The audience gasped audibly at the sharpness of her words. This was not the Courteney Cox they were used to seeing, the funny, warm, self-deprecating actress who always seemed so down-to-earth and approachable. This was someone pushed into a corner, fighting back against what she clearly perceived as an unfair attack. Savannah's expression remained neutral, but there was a glint in her eye that suggested she had expected this reaction, perhaps even wanted it. "A witch hunt?" Savannah repeated, her eyebrows raising. "That's a strong term. All I'm doing is asking questions that I think viewers at home would want answered. We live in a time where workplace culture matters, where people are speaking up about their experiences. If there are multiple people saying they had difficult experiences working on your show, shouldn't we at least explore that?" Courtney leaned forward, matching Savannah's intensity. "Multiple people? Who are these multiple people? Give me names. Give me specifics. Give me something concrete to respond to. Because right now, you're asking me to defend myself against ghosts. And that's not journalism. That's gossip dressed up as concern." The other host looked uncomfortable, uncertain how to navigate this increasingly heated exchange. Sarah Haynes attempted to smooth things over. "I think what we're all trying to understand is just, the creative process can be challenging. There are always different perspectives," she offered weakly. But Courtney wasn't interested in diplomatic platitudes anymore. She turned her attention fully to Savannah. "You know what I think this is really about?" she said, her voice low but intense. "I think this is about you trying to make a name for yourself as some kind of hard-hitting interviewer by ambushing me on a show where I came to have a friendly conversation. You want your viral moment? You want people to talk about how tough you are? How you don't give celebrities an easy ride? Well, congratulations, you got it. But at what cost? At the cost of fairness? At the cost of basic respect?" Savannah's composure cracked slightly, a flush creeping up her neck. "That is completely unfair and untrue," she shot back. "I'm doing my job, which is to ask questions that matter. If that makes you uncomfortable, maybe you should ask yourself why." The exchange had fully devolved now, two strong personalities clashing in real time on national television. Courtney shook her head, a bitter smile on her face. "What makes me uncomfortable is being blindsided," she said. "What makes me uncomfortable is coming onto a show in good faith and being treated like I'm on trial. You want to talk about power dynamics? Let's talk about the power dynamic of a journalist using their platform to attack someone who came here thinking they were among friends." Whoopi tried once more to regain control. "Ladies, I think maybe we need to take a breath here," she said, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had moderated countless heated discussions. "Courtney, nobody is attacking you. Savannah, maybe the approach could have been different. Let's remember, we're all professionals here." But the damage was done. The atmosphere in the studio was charged with tension, the audience unsure whether to applaud or remain silent. Courtney looked directly into the camera, bypassing the host entirely for a moment. "I came here today excited to talk about a project I poured my heart into," she said to the viewers at home. "Instead, I've been subjected to what feels like a character assassination based on nothing but rumors and innuendo. If that's what passes for journalism now, we're all in trouble." Savannah, clearly stung by the criticism and perhaps realizing the interview had gone too far, tried to recalibrate. "Courtney, I genuinely didn't mean for this to feel like an attack," she said, though her tone was still defensive. "These are questions that—" Courtney cut her off, her patience clearly exhausted. "Questions that what, Savannah? Questions that needed to be asked right now, in this moment, without any warning, without any opportunity for me to prepare a thoughtful response? You're a journalist. You know how this works. You know that responsible reporting means giving people a chance to respond properly, means presenting actual evidence, means doing more than just throwing accusations into the air and seeing what sticks." Savannah's face hardened, her own frustration now bubbling to the surface. "I didn't throw accusations. I asked you about reports that exist, that are out there, that other outlets are going to ask you about eventually. Would you rather I pretend they don't exist? Would you rather we just sit here and talk about how great everything is while legitimate concerns go unaddressed?" The word legitimate seemed to trigger something in Courtney. She let out a short, humorless laugh. "Legitimate," she repeated. "You keep using that word, but you haven't shown me anything legitimate. You haven't presented a single verified fact, a single named source, a single piece of actual evidence. What you've done is repeat vague rumors and then act like I'm the problem for not validating them. That's not how this is supposed to work." Joy Behar, who had been watching the exchange with increasing concern, decided to jump in. "You know, I think there's maybe a communication issue here," she said, trying to find middle ground. "Courtney, I don't think Savannah meant to ambush you. Savannah, maybe this could have been framed differently. We're all friends here, or at least we're supposed to be." But Courtney shook her head, clearly not interested in false peace. "With all due respect, Joy, we're not all friends here. Friends don't do this to each other. Friends don't use their position to put someone on the spot like this. I've known most of you for years. We've had wonderful conversations, but Savannah, you and I don't have that relationship, and maybe that's why you felt comfortable doing this." Savannah's eyes flashed. "So now you're saying I'm not part of this community? That I don't belong here?" "I was invited to co-host. I'm doing exactly what any good journalist would do, which is ask the questions that need asking. If you can't handle that, maybe you're not ready to be having these conversations." The condescension in Savannah's tone was unmistakable, and it clearly struck a nerve. Courtney's voice rose, the emotion finally breaking through her attempts at composure. "Don't you dare tell me what I'm ready for," she said sharply. "I've been doing interviews since before you were a reporter. I've faced tough questions. I've had difficult conversations, but those were based on something real, something substantive. This, what you're doing right now, this is just gotcha journalism, and you know it." The audience was completely silent now, every eye fixed on the two women locked in this verbal battle. The other hosts seemed frozen, unsure whether to intervene or let it play out. The producers in the control room were likely having their own heated discussion about whether to cut to commercial, but the riveting nature of the confrontation kept the cameras rolling. Savannah leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms. "You know what I think is really happening here?" she said, her tone measured but cutting. "I think you're used to being treated with kid gloves. I think you're used to coming on shows like this and getting softball questions and everyone telling you how wonderful you are. And the moment someone asks you something that challenges you, something that makes you actually have to think and respond, you fall apart and start attacking the messenger." Courtney's mouth dropped open slightly, genuinely shocked by the directness of the attack. "Fall apart?" she repeated, her voice dangerously quiet. "You think this is me falling apart?" "No, Savannah. This is me standing up for myself. This is me refusing to be bulldozed by someone who clearly has an agenda. You want to know what I think? I think you came in here today looking to make a moment, looking to prove something, and you decided I was going to be your target. Well, I'm not going to just sit here and take it." Whoopee. Her voice, firm now, tried once more. "Okay, we really need to bring this back," she said. "This is getting too heated, and we're losing sight of why we're here. Courtney, you have a show you want to talk about. Savannah, you've asked your questions. Can we please move on?" But Savannah wasn't done. "I'll move on when I get an actual answer," she insisted. "Courtney, just answer the question. Did you or did you not have issues on your set? It's a simple yes or no." Courtney stared at her incredulously. "It's not a simple yes or no, and you know it," she said. "Every production has challenges. Every workplace has moments of tension. That's normal. That's life. But what you're implying is that there was something toxic, something wrong. something that makes me a bad person or a bad producer. And I'm telling you, that's not true. We had a hardworking, dedicated team who created something beautiful together. Were there disagreements? Of course. Were there long days and stressful moments? Absolutely. But that doesn't mean anyone was mistreated or that the environment was hostile. You're taking normal production challenges and twisting them into something sinister, and I won't stand for it. Savannah shook her head. That's a very convenient answer, she said. You're basically saying yes, there were problems, but they don't count because all sets have problems. That's deflection, not accountability. The word accountability again? And Courteney visibly bristled. You keep talking about accountability like you're some kind of moral authority, she said, her voice sharp. But where's your accountability? Where's your accountability for coming on this show and using it as a platform to attack a guest? Where's your accountability for not doing your due diligence, for not verifying your sources, for not giving me any advance notice that this was the direction you were going to take? You want to hold me accountable? Fine, but be prepared to hold yourself to the same standard. The response clearly hit home. Savannah's face flushed deeper, and for the first time, she seemed genuinely rattled. I did do my due diligence, she said defensively. I have sources, I have information. I just can't reveal everything on air because that's not how journalism works. You don't get to see all the cards in my hand just because you demand it. Courteney leaned forward, her eyes locked on Savannah's. Then maybe you shouldn't be playing this game on live television, she said quietly but forcefully. Maybe if you have such explosive information, you should have done a proper investigative piece, contacted me privately, given me a chance to respond in a meaningful way. But no, you wanted the spectacle, you wanted the live confrontation, you wanted to see me squirm. Well, I'm not squirming, Savannah. I'm fighting back. The raw honesty of the moment was stunning. Sarah Haynes looked like she wanted to disappear into her chair. Joy was shaking her head, clearly frustrated with how the situation had deteriorated. Whoopi was staring at both women with an expression that mixed disappointment and concern. The audience remained frozen, caught between their loyalty to the show and their sympathy for both women in different ways. Savannah, perhaps realizing she was losing the room, tried to soften her approach. Look, Courteney, I didn't want this to become a fight, she said, though her tone still carried defensiveness. I genuinely believe these are important questions in today's climate. We're all trying to navigate a new world where workplace culture matters more than ever. I'm just trying to be part of that conversation. Courteney wasn't buying the olive branch. By throwing me under the bus, she countered. By using me as your example without any real basis? You want to have conversations about workplace culture? Great, have them, but have them honestly, have them fairly, and have them with people who have actually done something wrong. Don't just pick someone because they're sitting in front of you and you have a platform. The bitterness in her voice was palpable. This had clearly touched something deeper than just a disagreement about interview tactics. There was a sense that Courteney felt betrayed, not just by Savannah, but by the entire setup, by the assumption that she would just accept this line of questioning without pushing back. Savannah's jaw clenched. You're making this about me when it's not, she said. This is about larger issues in the industry, about power, about who gets to tell their story and who doesn't. I'm giving voice to people who might not have the platform you have. Courteney's eyes widened. Giving voice? She repeated, her tone incredulous. You're giving voice to anonymous, unverified complaints against me without giving me any real chance to defend myself. That's not noble, Savannah. That's reckless. And if you can't see the difference, then you have no business calling yourself a journalist. The insult landed like a slap. Savannah's face went pale, then red, her composure finally cracking completely. How dare you question my credentials, she said, her voice shaking slightly with anger. I've been a journalist for years. I've covered major stories. I've interviewed presidents and world leaders. I don't need you, of all people, telling me what journalism is. Courteney didn't back down. Then act like a journalist? She shot back. Act like someone who cares about truth and fairness, not ratings and viral moments, because right now, that's all this feels like. The studio felt like it was holding its breath. Whoopi stood up from her chair, a rare move that immediately commanded attention. All right, that's enough, she said, her voice carrying an authority that cut through the tension. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to reset this entire conversation. But Savannah, clearly feeling cornered and defensive, wasn't ready to stop. No, Whoopi, I want to finish this. she said. Courtney just questioned my integrity as a journalist, and I'm not going to let that stand without responding. Courtney laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. Your integrity questioned itself the moment you decided to come at me with unverified gossip disguised as serious journalism, she said. I didn't do anything to you, Savannah. You did this to yourself. Savannah's hands were shaking now, her emotional control slipping away completely. You think you're untouchable, don't you? She said, her voice rising. You think because you're Courteney Cox, because you were on Friends, because America loves you, that you can just dismiss any criticism, any question, anything that doesn't fit your narrative? The mention of Friends seemed to strike a particular chord. Courtney's face hardened. Don't you dare use my career against me, she said coldly. I've worked incredibly hard for everything I've achieved, and I've done it with integrity. You don't get to weaponize my success because you're losing an argument you never should have started. Joy tried desperately to intervene. Ladies, please, we really need to calm down here, she pleaded. This has gotten way out of hand. But neither woman was listening anymore. Savannah leaned forward, her eyes blazing. You want to talk about losing arguments? You've spent this entire interview deflecting, avoiding, attacking me instead of just answering simple questions. If you have nothing to hide, why are you so defensive? Courtney stood up from her chair, the movement sudden enough that it startled everyone. For a moment, it looked like she might walk off the set entirely. The audience gasped, the other hosts froze, and even Savannah looked momentarily uncertain, but Courtney didn't leave. Instead, she stood there, looking down at Savannah with an expression of profound disappointment. You know what the saddest part of all this is? Courtney said, her voice quieter now but somehow more powerful. I came here today excited, proud, ready to share something meaningful with people, and you turned it into this. You made it about drama, about conflict, about tearing someone down instead of building them up. That's not journalism, Savannah. That's not even entertainment. It's just cruel. The word cruel hung in the air, and for the first time, Savannah looked genuinely shaken. Her mouth opened as if to respond, but nothing came out. The other hosts exchanged glances, clearly unsure how to proceed. The audience was completely silent, the tension so thick it felt suffocating. Courtney looked at Whoopi. I think I'm done here, she said simply. Thank you for having me, but I'm not going to continue to subject myself to this. Whoopi nodded slowly, understanding in her eyes. I respect that, she said, and I'm sorry this went the way it did. Courtney turned to face the camera one last time. To everyone watching at home who was looking forward to hearing about the show, I'm sorry you didn't get that today, she said, her voice steady despite the emotion clearly running through her. I hope you'll still check it out because I'm incredibly proud of it and the people who made it with me. Without another word, she removed her microphone, set it on the table, and walked off the stage. The audience didn't know whether to applaud or stay silent, so a scattered, uncertain clapping rippled through the studio. Savannah sat frozen in her chair, her face a mixture of shock, anger, and something that might have been regret. The other hosts looked at each other, then at the camera, then at Whoopi for guidance. Whoopi took a deep breath and addressed the camera. Well, that was certainly unexpected, she said with deliberate understatement. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll continue the conversation. As the show cut to commercial, the ramifications of what had just happened were already rippling outward. Social media would explode within minutes. Takes would proliferate. Sides would be chosen. But in that studio, in that moment, there was just the stunned silence of people processing what they had witnessed, a confrontation that had spiraled far beyond anyone's expectations or control. The clash between Courteney Cox and Savannah Guthrie would become one of those defining television moments, dissected and debated for days to come. Whether either woman emerged victorious from the exchange was debatable, but what was certain was that neither would forget it, and neither would the millions of viewers who watched it unfold in real time. So what do you think about what just happened? Should Savannah have pressed harder or backed off sooner? Did Courtney overreact, or was she justified in her response? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more breakdowns of the most explosive moments in entertainment. We want to hear from you. Was this confrontation fair, journalism, or an unfair ambush?